I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do.
This is exactly what I'm talking about the kind of ludicrous hysteria that the left seem to specialize in, fueled by liberal celebrities.
We're traumatizing our children. There are kids in my town where I live, and they ask me every day. My friends want to know when their parents are going to be taken.
I'd love to ask JoJo why she's so traumatized by people who come into our country illegally who get removed, but not so traumatized when people who trespass on the Capitol grounds are raided by the FBI and thrown in jail.
It is a bit of a different Donald Trump, and I think it's to the benefit not just of America, but to the entire world. He was sold to so many Americans as this monster. You know, you throw out any word you want that's negative, they would apply it to Donald Trump.
Is Barron being lined up? Is he the next president?
That's the rumor, isn't it? There may be another President Trump coming down the line, so stay tuned.
Love it or loathe it, and there'll be plenty of people in both camps, President Trump appears to have done more in his first week than Joe Biden managed in a whole 4 years. The legendary Diet Coke button is back in the Oval Office, as is, I'm delighted to say, the bust of Sir Winston Churchill. It was first removed by Barack Obama and then again by Joe Biden. Fired up by artificial sweeteners and Churchillian spirit, the new president has charged headfirst into transforming the country as he sees it to make America great again. And he's held more press conferences and taken more questions, both in the Oval Office and on board Air Force One, than Biden did in 4 years. Trump even found time to hold a campaign-style rally in Las Vegas at the weekend, where he gleefully explained his get-it-done strategy.
Macron of France, he'll call you back in 2 months. So 2 months comes along and there's no call. They say, he didn't call. The stories are, I mean, these stories are not very exaggerated. I want to tell you, they're a little bit for laughter, but, you know, it's only for laughter. The fake news will say, oh, he exaggerated. It was only 1 month, you know. But he'll say he'd call you back, and then he'd never call, and then they could never get him on the phone. And the problem I have is that when I speak to and I speak to them immediately, they'll say, could we speak to the president? Would that be possible? We could do it anytime over the next month. They're so used to this, right? I say, no, I'll pick it up right now. Is he on the phone? Yeah, hello, how you doing? That's what, you know, get it over with, right? Get it over with.
Well, those world leaders are getting a big spoonful of the America First medicine. Colombia's president initially announced his country would flatly refuse to accept deportation flights from the United States as the new administration ramps up its tough new immigration policy. Trump responded by threatening him with massive tariffs and said he'd cancel the visas of all Colombian government officials and supporters. And guess what? Last night, Colombia's president agreed to all of America's demands and said the Colombian presidential plane would now be sent to aid the deportation effort. You might not like it, but you can't say it's not incredibly efficient. This week, we'll find out just how far the Trump transformation can go. Pete Hegseth was confirmed as the defense secretary over the weekend, but 3 of Trump's most contentious cabinet picks, Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK Jr., face the U.S. Senate this week. Well, joining me now to discuss all of this frenzied first week is Brandon Straka. He's a Republican commentator and campaigner, pardoned by President Trump for his role in January the 6th, journalist and political commentator Geraldo Rivera, and the Democrat commentator and podcaster Joanne Carducci, a.k.a. JoJo from Jerz. Welcome to all of you. We also later will have Lara Trump will be joining us, which will be fascinating given what's happened to her father-in-law in the last week. Geraldo, great to see you. We've spoken many times over the years about Donald. Happy New Year, belatedly. We've spoken a lot, Geraldo, about Donald Trump over the years. We both appeared on his Celebrity Apprentice show 15 years ago. We know him well. You got a bit fed up with him, to put it mildly. Were you stunned by the scale of his win?
I was. I thought that it was pretty clear he was going to win, Piers, but the fact that he also won the popular vote, I figured the Electoral College and all that without going into the arcane American system to the UK audience. I thought that Trump, in January 6th, really discredited himself to such an extent that he should never, ever be president again. And I thought a lot of Americans agreed with me. I was wrong. He won the Electoral College and he won the popular vote resoundingly. It's pretty clear that, and he's even more popular now than he was on Election Day. So I think that it's pretty clear that Donald Trump has a mandate from the American people to make his America Great Again agenda happen, Piers.
Just to clarify, Geraldo, no need to apologize to UK audience because we're now a global show. I'm actually broadcasting from Saudi Arabia in Riyadh right now. That's where we are. We have more viewers now to Piers Morgan Uncensored in America than anywhere else in the world. So no need at all to worry about any UK sensibilities, Geraldo. You can be as American as you like.
Okay, dude.
But Geraldo, before I let you go to the other two, Trump has hit the ground ferociously hard this time round. And it looks to me like a guy who, for two reasons, feels he's had a new lease of life. One, quite literally, because he nearly died in an assassination attempt. And in fact, there were two attempts on his life in the space of a few weeks, but one where he was hit on the ear, came half an inch away from death. And secondly, that as a president, he's got another go at it. And he's had 4 years to sit in the wilderness and think about what he got right, what he got wrong. And it seems to me that this time round, fueled by the fact that he survived the assassin's bullet, he's just decided to go for it. And he's going to do all the things that he wanted to do, perhaps regretted not doing quickly enough first time, while he's got the first 2 years in particular of this extraordinary, overwhelming mandate. I just get a sense of a guy, as we would say over here, with his gander up, who's going for it full tilt. And it's, whatever people think of what he's doing, and I'm sure not all the panelists are going to agree that it's all a force for good, it's certainly incredibly exciting to watch.
Well, in terms of me personally and the relationship I had with Donald Trump, I fell in love with him all over again in that defiant way that he survived the assassin's bullet and never lost his composure, clenched his fist. He was like a superhero, and I thought that he really behaved magnificently. In terms of him getting his gander up, my goodness, look what he did in Gaza, for example. A very, very difficult situation that it seemed the parties were content to bloody each other, and the civilian death toll mounting, et cetera. Israel defiant. I thought that he did a magnificent job, Trump, in getting the parties to the table in Gaza and finally getting a ceasefire in that awful bloodbath of a region. You mentioned the Colombian president. He was, again, the third time we used the word defiant. The Colombian president was defiant and said to the American president, I'm not taking that plane load of Colombian migrants, undocumented migrants. Forget about it. You're sending them in American military aircraft. Their hands are bound. Their feet are bound on the plane. I'm not taking them. It's undignified. But Trump said, if you're not taking them, I'm going to close the embassy in Bogota. I'm going to, not issue visas to any of your VIPs. Colombia is one of those countries where the rich kind of commute back and forth between the United States and Colombia, very often having dual residences. So it was something that he struck a chord, to say the least. The Colombian president caved, and there you have it. I think that Trump is on a roll. He's got the full might and majesty of the American, economic engine behind him. He has, this wicked tariff he could throw on anybody at any time. I think that, I would not, if I were a foreign leader, get in his way right now, Piers. I think that he's on a roll.
Well, Jojo, I saw that you were, in fact, you were called stony-faced is how I would categorize your expression there. Welcome to Uncensored. Great to have you here. You made a big name for yourself in the last year, so it's exciting to have you. I don't think you feel he's quite on the roll in the euphoric way that Geraldo does. Am I right in picking up the rather more negative vibes?
Well, thank you for having me on. And yeah, no, you're definitely picking up what I'm laying down. But I wanted to start with, Piers, your comment about Donald Trump's achievement installing a Diet Coke button in the Resolute desk, because I'm old-fashioned, I guess, and my barometer for achievement is maybe not leaving office, saddling our economy with the third largest debt relative to the size of our economy of any president in our history. But I mean, you know, maybe you measure success differently. And I just wanted to also mention, Geraldo, yeah, you're right about it being exciting. Someone mentioned something about this being exciting, but I'm old enough to know and grew up in the tri-state area that sometimes exciting things also yield nothing, like, you know, a vault being opened on live TV or something like that, where you can get a lot of excitement and drum it up. And then ultimately, it reveals nothing. I mean, I'm just old enough to remember that. Oh, look, Geraldo, all due respect, I did grow up with you on TV, and everyone remembers that sort of infamously, well, I don't know how to, I won't say it was a failure, but let's just say infamous event. But you mentioned that he has a mandate, and I wanted to. Oh, look, I mean, we watched it, right? It was amazing. It's now become a punchline and a running joke, and all due respect, you know, we all build our careers the way we do. But you mentioned that he has a mandate, and I wanted to touch on that because he did not win the majority of the popular vote. He has a plurality of the popular vote. There are more people in this country who didn't vote for him than did. So none of that is a mandate by any stretch of the imagination.
Hang on. Putting aside your very quick, sly whack at Geraldo, who's far too gentlemanly, I'm sure, to respond.
Whack at Geraldo.
But putting that aside, actually, Trump does have an undeniable, incredible mandate. He won the Electoral College, the popular vote, the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. It is what is called in politics a clean sweep. And you on the left, with all due respect,
he's also lost all of those things. The first one to ever do that, Piers. He's also lost all of those things. The first one to ever do that.
But at some point, I think in the process of Democrats trying to somehow regain some credibility, you are going to have to just accept you've got a complete shellacking. You're just going to have to. And then you're going to have to work out how you're going to somehow get back at Trump in a way that doesn't involve just endless screaming. As we're speaking, Selena Gomez, right? I'm going to play you a clip. This is exactly what I'm talking about the kind of ludicrous hysteria that the left seem to specialize in, fueled by liberal celebrities, that they think works for the public, but actually makes the public laugh at them. Selena Gomez has decided that the correct response to, so far, a bunch of illegal immigrant criminals, including some despicable people, by the way, with despicable crimes, have been deported, that this is the correct response. Let's take a look.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. They don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
Now, there's a lot to unpack there, but you should know that she almost immediately deleted it because the instant reaction from Americans was to absolutely ridicule this absurdly narcissistic response from somebody trying to make this all about her, weeping for people, in some cases I've seen, rapists and murderers. What is she crying about?
In some cases, like right here in my state, it was a U.S. citizen and veteran, Piers, that was also detained without a warrant at his place of work. So, I mean, if you want to talk about the rapists and criminals that are being detained, but you're just going to not refer to those situations as well, we're not really painting a full picture. And I want to just stop really quickly on the emotion that she expressed there. We are traumatizing our society as we speak. We are traumatizing our children. There are kids in my town where I live. My kids are almost 12 and 15 years old, and they ask me every day. My friends want to know when their parents are going to be taken, and will they have to go too? And if they don't go, who will take care of them? There was a video that went around my town last night that children here thought was real of ICE coming and taking kids out of their homes.
So let me ask you.
This
let me ask you.
Piers.
Okay, Jojo, let me ask you. So do you believe then that it is entirely correct and proper that illegal immigrants who've entered the country illegally and are then criminals who've broken the law, that they should be allowed to stay? And what about the million people who've already been processed for deportation under the Biden administration but weren't actually deported, would you keep them as well? In other words, for you, is there no limit to what people can do? They can come in illegally, they can break the law with impunity, they can be processed for deportation, but still you want to keep them in America. Well, what are you saying? It's important to clarify it.
Well, I never said that, but I never said that at all. In fact, I will say that, first of all, my father was an immigrant who came here lawfully from Lebanon, worked for 50 years for the Department of Defense, believed in a shining city on a hill. I would also say that if we're going to have that converse, I believe that, by the way, there is much reform to be made to the immigration process in this country. If I were an expert on that, I'd have a very different job. I'm not. I will say that it needs to be done and needs to be addressed. But if we're going to have the conversation about consequences and rule of law, then we need to have that conversation about somebody sitting on your panel right now who was a January 6th insurrectionist and was pardoned for his crimes. So if you're going to thread the needle on what is acceptable in terms of allowing crime and what is not acceptable in terms of allowing crime or forgivable in terms of allowing crime because of the color of someone's skin or the status of their citizenship, then I don't think this is a conversation about the rule of law at all.
Okay, but just to be clear, because you haven't answered the question, would you let illegal immigrants who break the law
Do I think that people should be able to? No, I don't. I don't think anyone should be able to break the law in this country and have no consequences for it. I do think that there are other ways to handle immigration rather than rounding people up in their elementary schools or going to their places of work or showing up at the groves where they're picking the citrus fruit that none of us will pick. And so that whole thing that we don't even have half the citrus crops we used to have because no one will pick it. Do I think that they should be able to commit crimes willy-nilly? No, I don't think anybody in this country should be able to do that. But do I think dehumanizing them by putting it on TV with Dr. effing Phil is the way to do it? No. We've seen this playbook before, Piers. Everyone on this panel knows we've seen this playbook before. This is how you dehumanize people so that you can get clear the path towards atrocity. Okay, and I'm not on board with that.
Let me ask you my favorite. All right, before I go to Brandon to respond, do you know my favorite question for my liberal friends is who was the biggest deporter of them all? Who deported more illegal immigrants than any president in history, pro rata, per year?
You're going to say Barack Obama, right? You're going to say Barack Obama.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm not saying it for any reason other than it is Barack Obama. He deported over 3 million illegal immigrants in 8 years.
Did he have Dr. Phil do it on TV?
I don't really care whether Dr. Phil's there or not. My point is the greatest deporter of all, the man who earned the moniker of deporter in chief in Mexico, was actually a Democrat president, Barack Obama. And I don't remember people like you screaming about how inhumane it all was when that was going on. In fact, most liberals I know have no idea, A, that he deported 3 million people, or B, that he was the deporter in chief.
Why?
Anyway, I mean,
because he didn't turn it into a reality show, Piers. It wasn't designed to dehumanize them. Because he didn't make it into a prop and cops and reality TV. It wasn't the Hunger Games or Running Man. That's why. You don't think this is dehumanizing them, Piers? Do you support that? Let me ask you a question, Piers. Do you support them being dehumanized? I think when you try and say that nobody, I think when you, no, I don't agree with anyone being dehumanized, but I do agree with illegal immigrants. That's what's happening, is it not?
In any country being thrown out, yeah. Because by the way, I have to go through a very vigorous process. Well, unfortunately for you, I ask the questions. But my point is that people like me who want to work in America or live in America have to go through a very laborious legal process. Everyone knows that. And when we ultimately get our visas, we're called illegal aliens. So, when it comes to dehumanizing, you can sort the language out on that to start with. Let me go to Brandon. Brandon. I mean, it was interesting there that Jojo, she's so far whacked Geraldo ad hominem, and she's gone for you as well. Just to remind people who may not know, what was your crime for which you were convicted on January 6th?
Right. Well, a few points that I think are important to let your audience know. Number one, I never entered the Capitol on January 6th. I stood outside of the east side of the building for 8 minutes shooting a video. I didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction, nor did I witness any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. Nobody was rioting on the side of the building that I was on. I stood outside of the building for 8 minutes shooting a video of people walking through the open doors of the Capitol, and then I uploaded that video to Twitter. And because of that, 2.5 weeks later, I was raided by the FBI, put in handcuffs, and taken taken to jail and charged with numerous felony charges by the Biden DOJ and ultimately took a misdemeanor plea deal. I'd love to ask JoJo why she's so traumatized by people who come into our country illegally who get removed, but not so traumatized when people who trespass on the Capitol grounds are raided by the FBI and thrown in jail. Why are those raids not upsetting to you?
Yeah, good question.
Are you
JoJo?
actually asking me a question?
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, Brandon, first of all, let me ask you a question. Didn't you participate with the Department of Justice to give them information on other people who were there and attacked the Capitol on January 6th, and then you tried to walk that back and said, well, actually, that's not what I said, until you're chastised by a judge who said, which is it, because you're getting into a little bit of a problem here where you look like you lied in your plea deal? You didn't do that? You didn't cooperate with them at all?
So I sat down with the DOJ, as every person who took a plea deal did. That was a requirement of every January 6th defendant who got a plea deal. The difference is I happen to be somebody who was well known before January 6th. So the media had a vested interest in trying to destroy my name and reputation. So they leaked my documents to the media. But what the documents showed was that nobody that I was asked questions about was ever accused of a crime, charged with a crime, or convicted of a crime. So I think to be able to inform on someone, you need to actually help somebody get charged or convicted. None of the people I was asked questions about were ever charged or convicted with a crime.
Interesting.
And then
Geraldo,
a representative of yours was chastised in court for that.
Hang on, JoJo. I'm going to move to Geraldo.
Yeah, my judge is a lunatic.
6th,
correct. My judge is a lunatic.
Okay,
oh, there
Geraldo,
it is.
with hang on, let me get to Geraldo. Geraldo, on January 6th and the pardons, I got to say I'm more in the J.D. Vance camp. I thought it was absolutely fine to pardon all the peaceful protesters, including our panelist today, Brandon. I think a lot of them have served quite lengthy prison sentences, probably longer than they would have done had they been doing a similar kind of protest somewhere else. But the ones who were violent towards police, I had a big problem with them being pardoned in the way that they were. Did you?
Well, I think that's a middle of the road position. I have no problem with it, Piers. I think that there is a difference between protesters who were peaceful and those who destroyed the building, or especially those who assaulted cops. But I am less offended by it than you might expect, because I think that the whole pardon process is outrageous. It dates back to the days, with due respect, of the monarchy, where the monarch could do whatever the monarch wanted. And I think when we, without common law, and then later, the good old days before 1776 and then after, we adopted that that power for our monarch, our president, and gave him almost, he or she, presumably someday she, had the power to do whatever they wanted when it came to pardon. They have absolute power, unlimited power. The fact that Trump pardoned them all, I think, was rash, and I don't think it helped his personal standing, his reputation. But he did it, and he had the absolute constitutional power to do it. No one denies that. I think that it is unfortunate. I do want, if I may, Piers, to talk about these raids, because we had a raid here in the neighborhood, here in Cleveland, Ohio, where the Mexican restaurant in the neighborhood, 3 people, we are told by our neighbors, were summarily arrested by ICE last night. I think that these are real. And I also think this about these raids in the current, this phase of war on illegal aliens, undocumented immigrants. This is the easy part. The easy part is the people that you described in your opening monologue, the heinous criminals, the violent people, the rapists, the murderers, and so forth. Those are the easy ones. The ICE knows where they are. Largely, many of them have monitors. They're going to be scooped up and they're going to be taken away, and whether they go in handcuffs or not is not my concern. What I'm concerned about is the babysitters and the house cleaners and the fruit pickers. I wrote a couple of books about immigration and how it is I think the strength of the American Republic that we have these broad shoulders when so many European countries are losing population. I'm distressed by it. I think that it is, but it is what America voted for. Sadly, I voted for Kamala Harris, but the people that voted for Donald Trump largely did it either because of transsexual and transgender and that kind of progressive woke stuff. And the other issue was undocumented immigration. And it struck a chord with the American people, the majority of the American people, not with me, but I'm not in the majority, certainly not on this particular issue. And I think that the worst is yet to come. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to get horrible when they start taking little screaming Jose and Maria out of third grade to be with their parents and their classmates to see it and are traumatized by it. I think it's going to be, there's going to be hell to pay. Even if there's not hell to pay, I think it'll be a scar in our national psyche, and I lament it. But I understand it is what America voted for. When they voted for Trump, they gave him the pardon power. I hope this gentleman takes advantage of this the second chance he's gotten in his life and makes the best of it. I did not vote for Donald Trump, and I broke off my friendship with him because of January 6th.
Yeah. I was very scathing about him on January the 6th, but I'm friendly with him again. And it's been a remarkable thing to watch his comeback. Jojo, I want to talk about DEI. Seems to me now to be DIA or DOA, isn't it? Dead on arrival. Because Pete Hegseth, the new defense secretary, has immediately ordered that all DEI stuff be removed from the Pentagon. They're basically de-woking the military, and most Americans I've spoken to bang up for this. They think it was ridiculous it ever got woked up in the first place. Do you think that along with DEI, that woke is dead? It's over for the wokies?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to talk about, just to pick up on something Geraldo said about the pardon. I agree with him 100% that Donald Trump was well within his constitutional right to do whatever he wanted with the pardon. I think we should find a way to reform the pardon in this country. I don't believe we should have a monarch who has any power that is uncheckable. I think, again, Joe Biden was roundly criticized for his choices to pardon the people that he did, but ironically, again, he was well within his constitutional right to do that. And in Donald Trump's case, just because you can does not mean you should. And pardoning those people who did beat our police officers that day, some of which are my very good friends, pardoning them sends the wrong message to everyone in the country. And I just also wanted to say, in terms of what the American people voted,
many of them were attacked by the police,
in terms of what the American people voted for. I'm sorry.
Jojo,
when you're done interrupting,
you're just repeating
I'm going to continue to say what I was saying. You're going to just talk over me.
You can say whatever you want to say,
I'm from New Jersey, sir. I have been talked over. Believe me. Piers, what I was saying in terms of what the American people voted
don't talk over each other.
as it pertains to January 6th, I was saying something. I mean, I'm not surprised at all that you have no regard for
no one can hear you.
Of course, he's just going to talk over me. I was talking.
All right, can you both stop talking, because nobody can understand a word you're saying. So let's just, Brandon, I will come to you to respond. Let Jojo finish her point.
Thank you.
Yes, and then I will come to Brandon.
Thank you very much.
Please don't answer. Please don't
really,
talk over each other. Nobody can hear you. Yeah, when you talk over each other, it's very pleasing for both of you, but nobody else. So Jojo, finish your point.
Thank you very much, because that's exactly what I was doing. I just wanted to pick up on something Geraldo said in terms of what the American people voted for when they voted for Donald Trump as it pertains to the January 6th pardons. And they did not actually support pardoning the most violent insurrectionists that day. Overwhelmingly, they said that they didn't want that. There was, a spectrum related to those who, like the guy who did the cosplay and the cage thing as a January 6th inmate thing, that guy. There was some debate over whether those people should be pardoned.
Jojo, here's the problem.
The American people didn't vote for that, Piers. They didn't vote for those pardons.
Hang on, please. The problem is with pardons is that Joe Biden has done what only one president in history has ever done, and that was once. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon preemptively, right? He gave him a preemptive full pardon for any more crimes that may come out. Joe Biden's done it for half his family, for a bunch of other people. He's given them all preemptive get-out-of-jail-free cards. We don't even know what the potential crimes might have been in the case of his family members. He's so desperate to preemptively pardon. So my point being that when the existing Democrat president abuses the pardon system in such an obviously personally self-interested manner, I don't think you really have the high moral ground on the left to go after Trump on pardons. I'm afraid that ship has sailed.
Piers, if you don't think that pardoning violence is a preemptive pardon for more acts of violence? You don't think that is exactly what you're setting the table for? That you don't think that the message is you commit acts of violence, I'm preemptively pardoning you by showing you that I will pardon you for your acts of violence? It is 100% a preemptive pardon for 1,600 people. Let's just say half of that number were violent. The preemptive pardon there is go ahead and commit acts of violence and I will let you get away with it. So yes, I do understand what you're saying about preemptive pardons and Joe Biden being the only other one since Gerald Ford, but Donald Trump just preemptively pardoned every violent, potentially violent
well, he didn't, though, did he? Because actually they'd all
those
been
acts of violence in his name.
Yeah, all right,
it's a permission structure, 100%.
Here's the difference. They'd already been in jail for quite considerable periods of time. There's a complete difference between those and those who never went to jail. Brandon, final word to you on this. Brandon?
Right. Well, I'd like to say, I mean, at least the January 6 defendants were charged in the first place. You want to talk about encouraging violence? How about in 2020, the egregious Democrat Party violence of Black Lives Matter that was never even charged in the first place? People burned down buildings, murdered people, beat thousands of police officers, while people like JoJo cheered it on, thought it was the greatest thing that had ever happened. These people weren't even charged with crimes. The January 6th, absolutely you did. The January 6th defendants were treated like terrorists in this country, including people like myself, who were never even accused of violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. And for many of the people, because we're having this debate about, oh, should the violent people have been pardoned, no one's even taking the time to understand that the Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and Matthew Graves DOJ lied in these cases up and down. And for many people that were accused of violence and forced into a position where they had to take plea deals and say that they committed violence, that in some cases they didn't commit, but in other cases, they were defending themselves from attacks on police officers. They were being shot in the face with rubber bullets, beaten over the head with batons, sprayed with tear gas as they were standing there peacefully, and found themselves in a position where they had to defend themselves. The moment they defended themselves, the DOJ isolated that moment, took it out of context, and said, this person assaulted a police officer. And low IQ, low information people like JoJo believe everything that they heard that was reported in the media. And that's where we are.
They showed up with weapons. It's so weird that they did that.
Final word to Geraldo. Final word to Geraldo.
All I want to say is the pardons were obnoxious. And I think that there is widespread agreement here to that extent. However, what you said, Piers, I think is really what should rule how we feel about it. These people, in terms, and especially when compared to the other guests' reference to the George Floyd riots that really ravaged the country. In the case of the January 6th riots, which changed my life, as I said earlier, ended my friendship with the president, which had gone on for over 40 years. I think that the vast majority of the people pardoned were people who served significant sentences already for these crimes. And crimes they were. And an invasion of the Capitol it was. These people they may have been pardoned, but there is a scar there and a record there, and everybody knows their situation. So, to some, it's a mark of glory. To others, like me, it is repugnant. And let them live. The person who smashed into the Capitol, the first one and all the rest of them, they are people that, in my view, are fringe players. They did their time. Forget about them. Trump did something we don't agree in terms of the ethics of it, but we do agree with the legality and the constitutionality of it. He was well within his rights. Okay. Let's move on as a country. Let's heal.
It's just good to see your presidents all behaving like a good old-fashioned British king, Geraldo. Great to see you all. Thank you very much indeed. Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law of President Trump, recently announced she'd no longer pursue a political career in the Senate, despite mounting speculation that she may have replaced Marco Rubio in his Florida seat. She stepped down from her role as co-chair of the RNC at the end of last year, but teased an exciting announcement coming this month, potentially suggesting future political aspirations. Lara remains a significant figure in American politics. With her father-in-law back in the White House, let's find out what is next for her from the woman herself. Lara, great to see you.
Hey, Piers, great to be back with you.
Are you ready to make your exciting announcement right now here on Piers Morgan Uncensored?
Do it here. Wow, break some news here. No, I'm not going to do it here. I know, I'm sorry, but it's coming very soon. I think this week I should be able to make the announcement.
So I was thinking of you when I knew we were going to have you back on the show, just about what it must be like for the Trump family the last 4 years, when you've gone from all the mayhem we were just discussing January the 6th and all the fallout from that, obviously, and for a long period of time after that, it did seem like your father-in-law, President Trump, was politically dead and buried. And then a sort of a remarkable series of events happened. There was the lawfare launched against him, which I thought was a lot of it was completely ridiculous, not least the Stormy Daniels case, which led to him getting a conviction for something most people thought was pathetic. And you saw his poll ratings going up and up and up throughout that whole process. Then you had the assassination attempt, where you will have been watching like the rest of us in utter horror as he came within half an inch of losing his life. Then another attempt at the golf course, which he also survived thanks to the sharp eyes of a Secret Service agent. Then you have the dramatic resignation of Joe Biden, the kind of coronation of Kamala Harris. It was, but for what was being billed at the start of the year as a boring rerun of two old guys duking it out, it became one of the most thrilling election campaigns of all time. But what was it like for you on the inside as his daughter-in-law?
Yeah.
It's not just Donald Trump, the politician. This is your father-in-law.
Yes, no, it's been a wild ride. I mean, and I would say that, Piers, about the last 9 years, really, because since the moment Donald Trump came down the escalator in Trump Tower, very famously in 2015, to announce he was running for president, things have never been the same, politically speaking, and not just America, but I think really around the world. People would agree with that. Certainly, the past several years have been incredibly unique. And, for me, I had a unique role as well, in that I was the co-chair of the RNC throughout the course of the past year and this election. But I'll tell you, as a daughter-in-law, as a family member, we have together as a family experienced some incredible highs, but we've also experienced the lowest lows, and we've all done it together as a family. And you're right. There were many people who counted Donald Trump out, who said he is politically dead. He's never coming back from this. He has no chance. You remember there were several people who got in and the primaries this past cycle as a Republican. And a lot of people got behind one of those folks and said, I'm not even going to bother with Donald Trump. And yet, look at what he's done, Piers. In the first week he has been in office, it's because people were able to see a side of Donald Trump, I believe, that they were not able to see previously. And it's because of some of those things that you just said. Some of it has to do with the lawfare that people saw, and it made them take a second look and say, why is it they're working so hard against this one man? Some of it did have to do with probably those assassination attempts against him. Took another look at Donald Trump, and people said, maybe there's more to this guy. And then I think, people in this country got to a point where truly they almost didn't have a choice. They could not continue their life in the same direction it had been going under the current leadership, under Democrat leadership, because it had failed them, because inflation is sky high, gas is sky high, we have an open border, we have wars breaking out around the world, and people said, we can't live like this. Donald Trump was offering something different. He did have a proven track record. And so it's been amazing to be a part of all of this as a family member, but also serving as co-chair of the RNC. I feel incredibly blessed, and to have a front row seat to history has truly been remarkable.
Do you feel he's a slightly changed man? I mean, I've spoken to him 5 or 6 times since he got shot, including the week afterwards when I was talking about him on Fox and he was watching, and he called me afterwards. We had quite a long chat. And I just felt then that something slightly had changed with him, that he just realized how close he'd come to dying, and that it sparked something in him. And I also feel getting the presidency back in such overwhelmingly successful way, winning such a mandate, winning the popular vote, winning everything, frankly, that the combination of the two things, I'm just detecting when I speak to him, he's just a bit of a different guy. He seems a little bit more relaxed, certainly more focused, I think, on legacy and what he wants to get done and getting his election promises done. But, again, you're on the inside. You see him a lot, not just as a political figure, but you see him as your father-in-law. You see him around your kids. He's a great grandfather. I know that. What do you feel? Do you feel he's a different guy?
He is. Look, he's still the same Donald Trump. He's still probably one of the funniest people I've ever met, a great storyteller. He's still this incredibly smart businessman, a great negotiator, which you're seeing with people, like the president of Colombia making, a decision in an
Yeah.
hour to finally accept, the criminals that we want to get out of this country. But he is different. Look, I don't think you go through something like a near death experience and come out the same on the other side. He said it time and time again. He said it at his inauguration address. He believes he is here today by the grace of God. He would not be here were it not God's choice to spare his life. He truly believes that. And so I do think that it's changed something in him. And you're right. This overwhelming win, this mandate delivered by the American people was such that it has given him, I think this, not that Donald Trump needs any more confidence, but extra confidence on top of what he already had.
Yeah.
He had 8 years to really solidify who he was going to be as a politician, who he wanted to be as a president. He had the 4 years of experience. And then don't kid yourself, Donald Trump is a study like I've never met before. When he wants to focus on something, he learns every single thing about it. And he did that over the past 4 years. He saw all the things the Biden administration did wrong. He saw the ways that we'd been ripped off, that he maybe didn't even see his first term in office, because quite frankly, he was fighting for his life every day there. There was so much against him. And so he's going in there with this idea in his mind of what he wants to do. He's executing on all of these things. And he is, I think relaxed is a good way to describe him too, because he's seen this show before with the media. He's seen the way they attack him. He's seen the left, the deep state, the swamp. It is a bit of a different Donald Trump. And I think it's to the benefit, not just of America, but to the entire world. And so it's really exciting to witness this right now. And I've said this several times since his election, Piers. I actually believe that Donald Trump, despite how they've tried to paint this man, will actually be a great unifier for this country. And I believe when he leaves office, he's going to go out with one of the highest approval ratings of any modern president. Wait and see. I think already people are starting to feel that and see it happen.
You know what?
And
I think,
it's really,
you know what,
really
Laura?
amazing.
I think you're right. I think that he is much more focused now. I've just been struck by little things I'm reading, like he had dinner for 3 hours with Bill Gates, not a natural bedfellow of his. Someone who's criticized him harshly in the past. But Bill Gates was very complimentary and said that President Trump listened to all his stuff about disease and about climate change, about all these things, and was very respectful. And I was like, that's interesting to me that he's seeing all these guys. People like Mark Zuckerberg have done these massive U-turns after going to dinner at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know what he's saying to them all at these dinners, but whatever it does, it's clearly working. But he's bringing into the tent a lot of people that were not natural Trump supporters. In fact, quite the opposite. And I think that is the way, actually, you begin to get to a more unified America, is when you bring in people that have previously been your sworn enemies.
Right. Well, look at who he has as part of his administration, or he hopes to have, in RFK Jr., in Tulsi Gabbard. These are people who were Democrats once upon a time. I actually think RFK Jr. still technically is a Democrat. He wanted to run as the nominee for the Democrats for president. And so you're right. I think to see the way that people have really opened up, and you said, you don't know what he's saying to people like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg at these dinners. I've witnessed some of these dinners, Piers. Donald Trump is just being himself. And, he gets mischaracterized so often. And he was sold to so many Americans as this monster, as, this fascist and this, that, and the other. You throw out any word you want that's negative, they would apply it to Donald Trump. But what a lot of people are finding is that he's a very reasonable guy. He does want to hear all perspectives and all sides of things. And he's very open to sitting down with anyone if he thinks it's going to benefit this country. And so I think it's been amazing to see those things happen. I knew there was a shift, Piers, when he got a commemorative Diet Coke delivered directly to Mar-a-Lago. We would have never seen that his first term in office, if we're all being honest.
Yes.
And I think it's great. He himself has said success will unify us, success will bring us together. And he's also said, my revenge will be success. He wants to succeed. He's already hit the ground running. And I think there's a lot more to come.
Well, it's the great Frank Sinatra line, isn't it? The best revenge is massive success. And I definitely think that's awesome. But I also think, I remember when I did Celebrity Apprentice, and it's always a good chance to remind everybody that I won the first series of Celebrity Apprentice, how I met all of you guys. And it was fascinating to get to know him properly then. But, I always remember reading his book, Think Big and Kick Ass was the title of his hilarious book, and then The Art of the Deal. And I read them both before I did the show to try and get inside his head a bit. And it just struck me that there were lots of clues there for how he would end up running the country. And that one of the things in one of those books was about how if he gets attacked, he goes into attack mode himself and tries to punch back metaphorically much harder. And that in that first term, it was constant attack. It was all Russia collusion. It was all this. The media were attacking him, the Democrats were attacking. Everyone was attacking him. Marches everywhere, protests everywhere. Everyone's screaming abuse, Trump hysteria. He's Hitler. They're all the new fascists and so on. This time, you talk about the moments when you think, I think he's won this. One was definitely when he stood up after he was shot. I just thought that was an iconic, incredible moment. And I said that to him the week after on the phone when he called me. I said, I think you've now won the election. And then the very next day, Joe Biden quit. I was like, wow, anything can happen here. Because he said 3 months is a long time. And boy, was he right. 3 hours, it turned out, was a long time. But, you know, so I sort of looked at that moment. But I also felt that with him, that when he did the Madison Square Garden rally, the first rally I'd been to, and I was there a few hours and was watching it, really interested. It was like being at a rock concert and waiting for the big band to appear, you know. And then I said to the Secret Service, how many protesters turned up, by the way? It's the middle of Manhattan, just before the election. And he said 150. 150 people bothered to turn up in the middle of New York to protest about a Trump rally, the first one ever at Madison Square Garden, this iconic venue in a Democrat city. And there were 50,000 people outside the venue, but they were Trump supporters trying to get in who didn't have tickets. And I said to people then, he's won. He's won big. I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he might even win New York, which sounded ridiculous. But I just said, if they can't be bothered to come to Manhattan, to Madison Square Garden and scream abuse, it's over. The resistance is done.
Right. Then that was exactly right. And you know what? We saw that in more places than just New York. And I think it's because there really has been a culture shift. And if you look at Donald Trump now, I mean, you even have people like Stephen A. Smith admitting, and Bill Maher, Donald Trump is cool. This is how people see him now. It has totally changed. That Madison Square Garden rally, I remember driving there from Trump Tower in the motorcade with my father-in-law. There were supporters like 9 and 10 people deep all the way from Trump Tower, which is on 5th Avenue and 56th Street, all the way down to Madison Square Garden, which is on 34th Street. It was amazing to see and it's not just visual, it's palpable out there all over this country. I had to go to Washington, D.C. the week before the inauguration. And what was incredible to me is the feeling in D.C., a place that I think Donald Trump won 3% of the vote in 2016. People in D.C. who live there were actually very positive and generally very happy and very nice to me. Something has changed. There is a shift. And I hope we can take this moment. I hope we can further this because it's a good thing for America. You know, we actually are, it turns out, more alike than we are different. And we all kind of want the same things at the end of the day. We want our families to succeed, be healthy, be able to provide for them, and have, you know, a bit of an upward trajectory for our life. That's what Donald Trump wants to provide for people. And I think that people got that. They understood that in this election. And I think, Piers, even some of the ones who were hysterical, you know, when he won on November 5th of last year, I think that even some of these people are going to start coming around because when your life looks a little bit better, when your future looks a little bit brighter, it's hard to argue with tangible results. And I think that's what he's going to deliver to people. So it's a culture shift. It's a phenomenon. It's a change. And it didn't hurt that the other side was really so bad and really just everything seemed fake and phony and no one was buying it. The enthusiasm, the joy, give me a break. Nobody bought it for a second.
Have we found out yet whose idea it was to come up with that campaign ad, which was Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you?
Well, I know who it was. It was one of our campaign team. And it was very strategically placed during Sunday night and Monday night football games. And it was targeted at a very specific audience. And it turns out it worked. And that was just part of it. You know, it takes a minute for people, I think, to start thinking about things and realizing how outrageous some of the things that are being shoved down our throats have become by the left. And I think that was one of those moments. A lot of people were like, yeah, I think that's right. And I think I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
And given that he's being widely credited with persuading his dad to do all the YouTubers, which as a YouTuber, I'm all in favor of. And given he took a little a little victory lap the other day where the audience went crazy as he saluted them. Is Barron being lined up? Is he the next president, do you think, in
Oh.
25, 30 years?
That's the rumor, isn't it? That's the rumor. Barron is in line next. Listen, he is a really smart, very talented kid, and I don't even think I can call him a kid anymore. That's how I've always known him. But you know, he's 18 years old, and he is part of the reason that I think you saw Donald Trump doing podcasts like Joe Rogan, like Theo Vaughn, and really going hard in that circuit. I think it was very impactful in this election, and so yeah, we got to give Barron a lot of credit. Now, what he's planning to do in the future, he quite frankly could just choose anything he wanted. He's smart, he's talented, and you know, the world is his oyster. So we'll see. I know it would make a lot of folks on the left very happy to know that there may be another President Trump coming down the line. So stay tuned.
Well, he does. He looks very like Donald did when he was the same age. If you actually look at the picture.
Yeah. Very handsome, great looking kid. Great looking parents make a great looking kid, Piers, turns out.
Well, you're a good-looking family, aren't you? When you all come out, it is like, you know, probably since the Kennedys, we haven't seen this kind of thing. I want to play you a clip, which I'm sure you will love to watch again. It's your children leading the Pledge of Allegiance at the victory rally the day before the inauguration. Let's take a look.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How did she feel? I mean, it's such an extraordinary moment for these kids to be doing that at that age. A lot of kids might have just run away. I'm going to think at least two of mine.
They don't even realize it. They don't even realize it, because that's the amazing thing. They're finally starting to kind of grasp who Grandpa is. But Eric and I were about to go out there on stage with my brother-in-law, Don, and my niece, Kai, Kai's like the most famous of the Trumps right now, by the way. She's like the shining star to emerge from the family beside Barron. Yeah, great golfer. But we were about to go out there. Both our kids were like, we don't want to go out. And we said, all right, well, if you go out, then maybe you could say the Pledge of Allegiance, which we do with our kids every night before we do prayers, before we go to bed. And so they were kind of like, all right. It's amazing, you know, to be able to share that with the country, with them, to have that moment. It was so special. And I hope that one day they look back on this and they actually feel the gravity of what was going on. Because to them, it was just like a fun thing. There's a microphone, and they are their grandfather's grandchildren. They do love a microphone, it turns out. So there you go. They had a great time.
And you've had an amazing life, Lara. Pastry chef to personal trainer to broadcaster to singer to politics, and then who knows what you're going to be announcing soon. When you look back over your life, I mean, that's been pretty surreal too, isn't it, that you've ended up where you are?
Oh, it's remarkable. I don't know any other reason that I'm here than I'll give credit and glory to God, honestly. I grew up like so many other people in America. I grew up in a middle-class family. My parents were small business owners, and I couldn't, in my wildest dreams, have ever imagined I would have the last name Trump, let alone be involved with all of this. Really the greatest political story, I would argue, in the history of our country. And it's amazing to have played a small role in it. I wake up every day and I pinch myself because I really don't even believe it's real. So I don't take any of it for granted, not for a second. I'm honored, I'm humbled. And yeah, I kind of feel like maybe the first chapter of my life is written. I don't know what's to come. There will be the announcement, like I said, later this week. And maybe that's the start of the next chapter of my life. So very exciting, but I am truly very blessed.
I mean, I was a bit, presumptive by suggesting Barron might be the next President Trump. There's never been a female American president. There are quite a few women in the Trump dynasty that I could imagine fitting in quite nicely to a presidential run. You would be one of them, Ivanka, Kai. I mean, there's a conveyor belt coming through, right?
Well, I will tell you this. I actually predict that the first female president of the United States will be a Republican. So whether she has the last name Trump or not, I won't be the one to say, but I think you can take that, write it down, mark the tape, go back to it whenever we elect our first woman as president, and she's running for the Republican Party.
I thought for a bit of fun that your father-in-law was going to identify as a woman and claim that he was now the first female president. I thought that would have been a hilarious way to deal with the woke mind virus once and for all.
That would have been a good one. I'll suggest it for him. Maybe there'll be something to come, a moment in the future.
It would be funny. Lara, great to talk to you as always. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Piers. Appreciate it.